and not 3-on-3. Here's a play broken up by Sissons. Tries to get it to Yossi. Now Ellis closes, shoots, he scores! Game over! Ryan Ellis. What a clutch shot as Ellis tickles the twine, and it's 3-2. The Predators will take 2 points, and for the 4th consecutive time, they have won in Tampa.
Everybody, it's Isaiah. Just reminding you that FlyersNittyGritty.com and the O&B Puckcast are brought to you by Summit Public Adjusters. Hey, do you have damage to your home? Not sure who to call? We suggest that you call Summit Public Adjusters before your insurance company. Dealing with your insurance company can be very stressful. Let Summit take the stress out of the claims process. From storm damage to your roof, to toilet overflows, to broken pipes and fires, Summit gets you the most money for your repairs. So next time Mother Nature leaves you in need of repairs, call Summit Public Adjusters at 215-752-0560 or visit summitpublicadjusters.com. Licensed in PA and New Jersey.
Yes, it is Isaiah, and we are here with an O&B Puckcast special. I'm here with the great Dan Silver. Dan, how you doing, man?
I'm great, man. I'm fantastic.
Gee, I wonder why. Could it have... go ahead, you tell me.
I mean, it has something to do with the fact that Chuck Fletcher pulled off an unbelievable trade yesterday. Why don't you tell everyone knows, but why don't you detail what they did?
Okay, yeah. So the Flyers acquire Ryan Ellis, a right-handed defenseman, from the Nashville Predators in exchange for Phil Myers and Nolan Patrick, who was quickly sent by David Poile of Nashville right to Vegas for Cody Glass. Now, without going too deep into the other part of the trade, Nolan Patrick is reunited with Kelly McCrimmon, who was the general manager, I think, of the Brandon Wheat Kings back in the heyday of Nolan Patrick, whenever that was. And Cody Glass is now the complete package. But the Flyers have a top pairing right-handed D-man. He's locked up for 6 years for $6.25 million. There's some risk involved. We'll discuss that. But hey, this is probably the best defenseman the Flyers have had since, I'd say, Chris Pronger. Yeah, I'm not saying he's as good. He's probably as good as Chemo in terms of quality. What do you think?
This is perfect because, we were kind of talking about, okay, the Flyers need to get a top pairing right-handed defenseman. And so who we were talking about? We're talking about Dougie Hamilton, who's going to be a free agent, and he's probably going to cost $8 to $9 million a year. And he's a very talented, very skilled defender, but he can be a little bit soft at times. And we kind of know that the Flyers needed to have a guy who was superior defensively, pretty good, and maybe brought a little bit of nastiness and snarl and grit. So Hamilton was an option. We would have taken him. But also, I think he's probably going to end up in Seattle. We'll see what happens. We talked about Seth Jones, and Seth Jones is a guy who I think we all wanted, but there were some question marks there because he was going to need a new contract at the end of next season, and it wasn't clear if he wanted to come to Philly, and he had a really bad year last year. So Seth Jones, there were some question marks about, and I think at least for me, the pie in the sky was Ryan Ellis because he plays 24 minutes a night. He's very good in his own zone. He's very smooth. He plays with a little bit of a snarl. He's a really good passer. he's just kind of like the perfect fit out there. And when we were talking about, okay, what is it going to cost to get Ryan Ellis, I didn't think it was going to be possible because I assumed we would have to give up Morgan Frost, a first-round pick, maybe Travis Konechny, because he's signed for the next 6 seasons at a reasonable $6 million a year. And I was playing poker yesterday. I was at the casino, and I see I see a tweet from Charlie O'Connor being like, I can confirm that the Flyers have traded Philippe Myers and Nolan Patrick for Ryan Ellis. And I'm just like, oh, my God. Like, how did Chuck Fletcher pull off this trade without giving up a first-round pick or giving up a top prospect? He traded away Nolan Patrick, who none of us wanted on the team anymore, and Phil Myers, who I think that Phil Myers could blossom in Nashville. They have so many good defensemen. He's going to get some good tutelage there. You don't love losing Phil Myers, but it just wasn't that much to give up for a guy who, as long as he can stay healthy, is going to be your top pairing right-handed D-man.
Absolutely. If you get 4 out of 6 years that are good, it'll kind of mirror what they did with Chemo. I mean, look, they have so much to accomplish this offseason, and to be able to get a player like Ellis without giving up more, knowing they need more, and they're going to need assets to do more, is such a win for them. And the thing about Ellis also, and I've emphasized this, he's such a good stylistic fit with Provy. With Jones, and Provorov, they had a lot of the same strengths and weaknesses. I think there's a better complement here. Maybe Jones has more actual physical ability, but I like the complement, and Hamilton was going to be so expensive. And look, even to a fault, Ryan Ellis is a warrior. He gets hurt a little bit. We'll talk about that. But this is a great way to start off the offseason for the Flyers, and it gives you hope that Chuck Fletcher is ready to rock and roll. He's already said, hey, listen, if my first-round pick is out there, if somebody wants it, we're looking to improve the team. So, what else can you say?
The first-round pick just has so much value because they picked 13th. Like, there's going to be a very good player there.
Yeah.
It looks like there's 2 potential franchise goaltenders that are going to be available in the first year of the draft this year. From the latest mocks I've been seeing, it looks like both of those guys might last to number 13. Cole Sillinger, who's a really good Canadian, young center, looks like, he might be available. The bottom line is the 13th overall pick is very valuable. And so now I'm very interested to see, okay, now what does Chuck Fletcher pivot to? What could he get with that 13th overall pick? The fact that he didn't have to give that up to get Ryan Ellis, he just solved his biggest question mark in the offseason without giving up anything close to what we thought he was going to have to give up. And now, what could he do with that first round pick? The sky's the limit to me. You talk about guys like Sam Reinhart could be a guy they could go after. We've talked about, there's been a lot of chatter recently about the Flyers trying to acquire Vladimir Terencenko, who's, in the past has been a top elite goal scorer in the NHL. He's had 3 shoulder surgeries in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
And St. Louis is leaving him unprotected, I believe, in the expansion.
Yeah.
So there's been rumors that Seattle might take him and then trade him to the Flyers. I have a sneaking suspicion that the Flyers may end up with Tarasenko. We'll see, but they're not going to they won't have to give up the first round pick to get a guy like that because of the injury concerns. So there's just so many options for what they could do with that pick.
Yeah, absolutely. We can get into that. I did want to concentrate a little bit, Dan. There are some negatives. Obviously, you look at the ceiling and the physical ability of Phil Myers, and even though he doesn't think the game as well as you would like, he's going to be, especially in that Nashville system, like you were saying. I look for him to kind of return to form, and I don't know if he'll ever be a first pair guy, but he's going to be a player who's going to do some damage in this league. At least I think so.
I've always been a huge fan of Phil Myers. I had him rated higher than Travis Sanheim as a prospect. And, maybe that will really come back to haunt us. But again, compared to what we thought we were going to have to give up to get a top pairing D-man, this is, less of a package that we were kind of looking at. And yeah, Phil Myers could blossom into a, borderline first or second pairing D-man for sure. But he's not, I don't know if he ever can be as good as Ryan Ellis can be if he's healthy. So that is the concern. I mean, Ryan Ellis had shoulder surgery recently. He missed a bunch of games last year. A lot of people think he wasn't the same after he took a high elbow from, I think, Corey Perry.
Yeah, Corey Perry again.
And he was, he has suffered a concussion from that. So he's turning 30 years old. Although, hey, I'm 41. I'm playing roller hockey and scoring goals, left and right. So, these guys can make it go for a while.
I appreciate that comparison. That makes me feel a lot better.
Yeah.
No, but we got Kimo when he was 32. We got Pronger when he was 35, and it took a concussion to take him out. It wasn't like it was like he wore down or anything like that. I mean, he's a warrior.
Ellis is such a smooth skater, and he's just he thinks the game on such a high level that those things he's not really going to lose. So it's just the injury concerns that kind of scare you. But yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I will not be surprised if Nolan Patrick goes to Vegas and does pretty well. I mean, my whole thing with Nolan Patrick was he clearly didn't want to be here. He wasn't going to reach his potential here. So good riddance. But I won't be shocked if he has the skill set. He's got the physical package to become a, second or third line NHL center. And maybe Vegas, some of those veterans there can whip him into shape. I don't know. But yeah, there's definitely upside with Myers and Patrick. It's just a lot less than we thought we were going to have to give up.
No question about that. The other thing is, with that injury history, knowing that he can miss 10 to 12 games, does it behoove the Flyers now, especially looking at the AAV of Ellis being at 6.25, which is probably about $1.5 million to $2 million less than a player of Ellis's quality normally would be? Does it behoove them to go out and get that second pair right-hand guy who can play with Sanheim, play some harder minutes, and also spot up on the first pair if Ellis misses some time?
Yeah, absolutely. And the name that I keep seeing, Bill Meltzer wrote a piece where he kind of even put this guy into the lineup as a, hopeful, is David Savard, who just won a cup with Tampa. And he was traded for I think a first and second round pick from Columbus to Tampa this past offseason. And he played on their second pair in the playoffs. And Savard would be a great guy if you want to sign him. I don't know what he's going to cost, $4 million a year or something. I'm not sure.
He might get $5 million, but yeah, I hear you.
So if you slot it in, if you have Provorov and Ellis as your top pair, Sanheim and Savard as your second pair, and Cam York and Justin Braun as your third pair, I mean, that's pretty much as ideal as it gets. Right now, the Flyers have about $10 million in cap space, and they've got to re-sign Sanheim and they've got to re-sign Carter Hart. So let's say Carter Hart signs for $3 million and Sanheim signs for $4 million. Now you've only got $3 million of cap space left. So you're still going to have to move a JVR and or a Ghost and or a Voracek. But, we'll get to the expansion list, soon. I think that they'll probably be able to move two of those guys. So, they're going to have, they should have, even after re-signing Sanheim and Hart, they should probably still have about $10 million of money to spend, I would think.
Yeah, I would think so, especially both of them are coming off more of a down year. That was the one positive of their poor performance. So Bill Meltzer did a really nice analysis of different scenarios with expansion in terms of if they take this player, the Flyers should have this much, and they'll come out more or less ahead, having traded Myers and Patrick and acquiring Ellis for less than, they probably thought they'd have to spend on a defenseman per year. So that'll be interesting to look at. So Ryan Ellis, is he going to be the top guy on the power play?
This is a good question. I think that when we had Charlie O'Connor on last week, he talked about how the team kind of wants to change the way that they funnel the puck on that top power play unit. And obviously Ryan Ellis is a guy that could bring that to the table. But I still think that ultimately Cam York may end up being that guy. It may not be to start next season, but it might, because we know that Alain Vigneault is not scared to put young kids in spots like that. So I think Ellis is probably, if there was a Vegas morning line for, who was going to be the Flyers' top power play D-man, I think that right now Ellis is probably the favorite going into the season. Mm-hmm. But if I would be betting on Cam York, certainly, to take that over a few months in.
Could be one type of power play could be crank and shoot it with Ellis, and then the other one, as he emerges, York could be the distributor, and it would give them a different flavor. I know we talked about on the last show, and Charlie mentioned the Flyers like someone who's more of a point guard distributor back there. But still, if you're getting results, I think they're not going to fight it, because I know Ellis can really bring it with his shot.
Yeah, he's got a big shot, but he's also a very good passer.
Oh, yeah, heavy player. So, Ryan Ellis, the Flyers have solved their biggest problem at a relatively low cost. And frankly, the future is now. I'm not really worried about what any of the players who left are going to do right now. The Flyers deserve, after all these years, to have a window where they're going to try and compete for a cup, and the future is now. And I think that's really the bottom line.
Yeah, it's the one that, so they're going to have to, they probably still need a third line center, I would say, and they need a backup goalie, and they need, as we discussed, probably a second pairing D-man. But again, it's kind of like a trickle-down effect. You've already got that top need in place. So,
and only really, in my mind, only Myers was an asset with real value. And he was coming off a bad year, so it's not like his value was maxed out. I mean, if you look at social media, people were saying, oh, all these young guys are not going to have any value. How are we going to trade them? And like, oh, nah, forget all that.
Right. Yep.
So, let's move on to the expansion list. The Flyers pulled a fast one here, and I want you to do some, give us your thoughts about the Flyers' decision to protect Nick Aube-Kubel over JVR. The rest of the players on there, I'll just read them out. Sean Couturier, Claude Giroux, Kevin Hayes, Travis Konechny, Scott Lawton, Oscar Lindblom. Those were your 7 forwards. Obviously, your 3 defensemen, Ryan Ellis, Ivan Provorov, Travis Sanheim, and 1 goaltender, and Carter Hart. And that was the decision, right, Dan? Are we going to make, Seattle, I should say, are we going to make the Kraken choose among a lot of high-priced alternatives? And the Flyers seem to be using that strategy.
Yeah, I mean, there was some chatter after this move because everyone kind of assumed that Patrick would be the 7th protected forward because he has some trade value.
Right.
So now that they don't have to protect him, a lot of people are saying, oh, are they now going to protect James Van Riemsdyk? Or is it going to be someone like Nicolas Aube-Kubel? And I think it is, it's telling that they protected Aube-Kubel because he's a guy that I've sort of thought that Seattle might end up taking, and now they can't. So really, you can't force them. People are like, oh, now they were forcing them to take JVR or Voracek or Ghost. I mean, that's not the case. They could clearly take Robert Haig because Dave Haxtell was a big fan of Robert Haig. I mean, he elevated him to the starting lineup before Travis Sanheim. So, he likes Haig a lot. Justin Braun is a guy that they could take.
Maybe.
But, and I think the Flyers are, of all those guys, I think they're hoping that they don't take Braun because I think that the Flyers are viewing Justin Braun as a very good partner for Cam York to kind of help bring him into the league. But it's if they take JVR and we don't have to throw in a sweetener, it's great. I mean, he played very well this year. He was very hot at the beginning of the year. But this is the only question you need to answer. Are there better uses of $7 million for the Flyers than JVR? And the answer is clearly yes. because they could use it to sign the right-handed D-man who could play on the second pair and also a backup goaltender, or they could use it to get the second pair D-man and a third line center. You could bring in, David Savard and Nick Bonino potentially with the JVR money. It might be a little bit more than that. But now we just kind of sit back and see what happens. And there's, like I said, there's been a lot of chatter about Voracek for Terencenko if neither of those guys get taken by Seattle. And Terencenko makes a little bit less money, I believe, than Voracek.
Yeah, so I think he's 7.75 or something like that.
So that could be some savings. But yeah, I mean, I was not surprised at all that they protected Abe Bell.
Yep, it forces their hand. JVR is still out there with Jake and Ghost. I think one of those more than likely will be the player that's taken. I think it's going to be JVR or Ghost. And they'd still have to move more money, though, to meet those needs. And that's something we'll be taking a look at. And like you said, Dan, what's going to happen is there's going to be scenarios where players are taken from the unprotected list by Seattle, but then they're going to get shipped right out. So if the Flyers wanted a certain player, like you said, Tarasenko, and there's an agreed upon price from among the Flyers' young players or somebody on the roster by some chance, then they could work a separate deal right there.
Do you think that they'd have to put in a sweetener to get them to take JVR?
JVR, no, unless it's all part of a deal where they take JVR and then we're also going to take this guy and then you're going to ship this guy and it'll look like they paid more to get somebody, but part of it was they were going to take JVR. You know what I'm saying? There could be a lot of machinations here.
Yeah. I mean, because there are a lot of high-priced players available to the Kraken that are pretty good. I mean, Matt Duchene is available to them. I know he's got more term on his contract than JVR, but, I feel like there are a lot of very talented, high-priced players available to them, and they may still be. I'm sure they're trying to get sweeteners from teams to take these contracts off their books.
There's no doubt. I mean, you got Carey Price was exposed.
That's insane, right?
Ryan Johansson, yeah, and Landeskog is a UFA. I guess if he put pen to paper, we'll get to Price in a second. If he put pen to paper right now, would he be a member of the Kraken?
Sure.
Wow, crazy. Because he wants like $9 or $10 million. So yeah, but Price. Let's get back to Carey Price.
What is this? And I tweeted out that this kind of like shows what's wrong with the NHL today. I mean, Carey Price is probably a top 3, no worse than top 5 goalie in the league. He literally just put the Canadiens on his back along with Shea Weber and took them to the Stanley Cup Finals as a team that finished with one more point in the regular season than the Flyers. But Carey Price was sensational in the playoffs. He took them to the finals. And now, because the Canadiens want to protect Jake Allen, who's their backup, they are making Carey Price available to the Kraken. Now, yes, Carey Price makes $10.5 million for the next 5 seasons. That's a lot of money. But again, he's one of the best goalies in the league, and he's available to the Kraken. I mean, it's a little insane, isn't it?
It is, but if you look at it, there's a poison pill in there. Don't they have to pay him a bonus of like $11 million this year?
Yes, I believe that there's an $11 million bonus this year.
Okay, so it's kind of a poison pill. Plus, if you look at Montreal, they have Caden Primo. He's not quite ready yet. But maybe they think, you know what? Maybe we know Weber's not going to play this year. If Shea Weber is done, does that reset their timeline? I mean, there might be things at play here that we're not aware of.
Well, but we are aware of most of them. I mean, the cards are on the table for the most part. They're making Carey Price available. And okay, so maybe they shouldn't have signed him to such a long contract. But he still is he's 33. Goaltenders age pretty well. He's definitely has a couple really good seasons left. I mean, if Seattle is able to put together, here's the thing. The Vegas Golden Knights were a Stanley Cup contender their first season in the league. If the Kraken, or let's say they're able to put together a Stanley Cup contending team, and you have Carey Price, like that's a huge advantage.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you. I don't know if Ron Francis wants to come out of the gate like that with the constant pressure from day one to try and win, because in the long term, if you strike out, you might have years of futility lacking draft picks. And you saw what Francis did in Carolina. I used to call it the baton death march of rebuilds. I mean,
well, that's another thing is, what else does it say about the NHL and the current salary cap situation if Carey Price is available to the Kraken? And as most people think, they just say, you know what, no thanks. Like, I mean,
it tells you
that also sort of goes to show you. I mean,
I think you need a luxury tax. That's what it tells me. I'm not a fan of the cap, but that's a whole other thing. So, I mean, these are the types of issues that are going to come to play on Wednesday night. Was it 8:00? They're going to have the expansion draft, and there's going to be some jockeying. The Flyers are going to find out who they take and if there's a trade. And man, it's just going to be so busy. And then you have the draft, and like Charlie said last show, there's going to be more players available, and we've seen that with the protection list than there have been in many years. This is pent up demand.
Yeah, I'm just looking down the list. I mean, there's some quality. I mean, the Athletics got a list of all the guys available, and it's there's some really good players that are going to be available to this team.
So, and will they be more valuable to other teams? I mean, that's really it, and that's where the Flyers come in. You look at a right-handed defenseman the Flyers might not have access to, and then Francis is like, you know what? This guy's got about 3 or 4 years of good play in front of him, and I don't know if I really like the player that much. Why don't we call up Philadelphia? Because we were talking with them, and so on and so forth, and all kinds of deals are going to be made. And then you have everything that's going on in Tampa. They went 4-4, so they could keep Chernak and McDonough, but they couldn't protect Palat or Killorn. So are they going to have to give up players to hang on to some of those guys? They've already traded Goudreau.
Yeah, I'm just digging into this list. I mean, the Bruins protected Dan Vladar, and they've got Tuukka Rask's available.
Yeah, they know Tuukka Rask is not going to play anywhere else. That's the good news for them. So,
but there's just a ton of options. This week is going to be insane. Teams can't make trades until the expansion draft, but then after the expansion draft, there's going to be one day, and then the next day is the entry draft. So Wednesday, Thursday, Friday of next week are just going to be absolutely insane with NHL activity. And it seems like we say that a lot of the time, and sometimes it doesn't happen, but man, it's going to happen this time.
It's on. There's no doubt. No doubt.
Mark Giordano's available.
Yeah, Giordano. Now, talk about a veteran leader to get them off on the right foot, So
imagine having a top pair of Giordano and Dougie Hamilton if they sign him.
Yeah.
That'd be pretty good.
Pretty good.
Doesn't it kind of seem like Hamilton would be a great fit in Seattle? Kind of, likes the quiet cities, and I don't know. That one just screams to me that it could make sense.
Well, yeah. I mean, you want someone who marches to the beat of their own drummer, just goes out, shows up, plays well, plays to his ability. Like you said, might be a little bit soft in the playoffs, but not Sanheim soft. I think that, I could definitely see it. For him, he knows he's going to get paid. So whatever his life priorities are in terms of where he wants to live, and this is probably his last big contract, then that'll probably guide his decision.
Max Domi's available. He's a guy who people used to think fairly high of.
Yeah. Do you see that trade tree? How they, I forget what it was. That Columbus lost a certain player, or was it? I forget who it was. To keep somebody, and then they got traded to keep Anderson, and then they lost Anderson to Montreal and got Domi. Now they're letting go Domi or something like that.
No, I didn't see that.
Yeah, that stuff will drive you crazy. But you can only deal with the here and now. Like Nashville. Nashville was ready to do what they did yesterday at the trade deadline. And then they started picking up their play. And the Flyers went, down into a ditch. But David Poile made the decision he had to change the team. And that allowed this opportunity to arise for the Flyers. So it's going to be crazy. And Thursday night, we're coming back with a show. So we're going to get some feedback from Chef, who will be back. He's on assignment today with the family. And also, we're going to have Russ Cohen to preview the NHL Empty Draft and talk about all the news. I guess everybody's going to be on their Twitter to see if any trades are occurring during the show.
Yeah, it's gonna be a little nuts. So Wednesday night I've got I've got a dinner. I'm going to a concert, first concert I've been going to in a long time.
Oh,
so
cool.
I'm gonna have to be checking my phone for updates on the expansion draft. But Friday night I'm keeping clear for the entry draft. I mean, it's just, man, it's gonna be wild.
It is gonna be wild, and the trades this year will definitely upstage the draft itself, because some of these players are unknown to people outside of Owen Power, some of the guys you mentioned. Who's this guy, Lucius?
Chaz Lucius.
And
Nice.
Hughes is it Lucas Hughes?
Yeah, Luke Hughes, who's the brother of Jack and Quinn Hughes.
Jack and Quinn, yeah. So
yeah, there's
some good names.
There's a lot of if the Flyers, I could see a scenario where they end up keeping that pick, and if they keep that pick, they will get a very good player. I wouldn't be totally stunned if they take one of the goalies.
Nope, I was going to say the same thing. Me neither.
It would not shock me, because there's still some uncertainty with Carter Hart, and the team's pipeline is pretty deep everywhere else. Now, they probably would like to snag a center.
Yeah.
And I really think Cole Sillinger is a guy Cole Sillinger might be the best shooter in the draft. He's a guy that, would be very interesting if he lasts there. It'll be fun to see if, when the draft starts, if they still have their pick and they're going to be maybe trying to wheel and deal based on who's there, or if they're going to try and move it after the expansion draft is over, when things have settled down a little bit. It's fascinating.
Yeah, that would be the son of Mike Sillinger, who played for about 10 or 12 different teams in the league, including the Flyers. So it never ends. It's going to be crazy. This is we're in the middle of the 8-day crunch. After that, we're going to have another show previewing the UFAs and wrapping up all the trades that happened during the draft. We got you covered at the O&B Puckcast, though.
Absolutely.
So before we go, just a reminder that, if you're in the area, check out Jim South Street, 400 South Street, the greatest cheesesteaks and hoagies, 40 years, in the grandest Philadelphia tradition. And if you're down there and you can't make it, no problem. They work with DoorDash. So you got to get it. With or without, doesn't matter. Whatever you want. Jim South Street, 400 South Street in Philadelphia, PA. And Dan, I think we're going to wrap it there. Why don't we say good night? We'll see you Thursday night with Russ Cohen. Dan?
I'm still tickled pink. I'm still over the moon about this trade, and I can't wait to see what Chucky has in store for us this week.
Absolutely. So until next time, everybody, take care. We'll see you Thursday.